Okay, so I'm about ready to start up my playthrough Kingdom of Heaven. First scenario, they name it Deus. Vult. Anyway, it's the First Crusade. Threw some additional counters on the board. These little city markers that I hadn't had out yet. I don't know how much effect they really play. I think largely that aren't a lot of cities, so it'll be able to be, you can keep track of it fairly easily. I did run across something kind of interesting in the counters, which didn't sink in anywhere from the rules. They have these little markers, and I mean clearly you can use them, but Army A, Army B for the Muslims, and the same for the Catholics, but no player aid to hold them on. And nowhere, I mean, there's a lot of map here that's unused, right? And you could say, well, there's a design decision there to make things kind of more attractive or whatever with a lot of white space. Great, but there's also, you could at least have traced out some light boxes or within the little player centers. Anyway, fairly minor issue. Again, with the Crusade, you know, you can have them stacked in your areas or whatever. It's not a big deal. It's just kind of weird to have given counters like that and not given the support for them, as it were. So, looking at this scenario, it's a 3-turn scenario. I'm moving into game turn 1 here. Game ends at the end of turn 3. My first thought, before I realized how short it was, wow, this is going to be a cakewalk. I mean, there's really, unless the event cards really influence factors, there's not a lot of Muslim units here. And the Crusaders have quite a large army. And they also have, you know, some decent leaders, etc. It looks to me like they're just going to brush through everything, and it comes down to maybe the sieges, which in some ways is kind of appropriate, but then I realized the length of time and how quickly, in order to win, the Crusaders have to cover from here down to conquering Jerusalem. And in fact, they need Jerusalem to win. Let's take a look at what some of the special rules are for this one. First of all, there's the Fatimids, who are in their own little civil war. And sorry, that's the next scenario. So that's some later one. Okay, so the special rules for this one. Okay, the Christians have to keep a leader in every city they capture, the square cities. They have to leave one of their leaders behind. Eventually, they can have one free leader if they capture enough cities, who's, you know, leading their forces for some final assault or something. But it's kind of a reason why you may not want to, say, spread out and grab Edessa, even though it's worth 3 victory points for you, until after you get Jerusalem or after you get some key locations. You kind of don't want to split the army up too much, because the more you capture, the harder it's going to be to hold your army together. Anyway, truce card number 52 cannot be played as an event grade. Karak is worth no victory points in this scenario. It's probably a 1 victory point location, yeah, down here. And let's see. Jerusalem and Transjordan is only under loose Seljuk control. They're not considered core parts of the Sultanate. The units that are there are under special rules. The Seljuk units starting there may not move, they do not demobilize, and they're otherwise treated as neutral units. In addition, they may not enter or muster, other Seljuk forces may not enter or muster these 2 provinces down here. Castle garrisons in these provinces may not be adjusted. Now, I've already reduced the castles in those provinces because I want to provide more defense up in the front where it's going to be taxed early on. But it does mean that if the Seljuks are all that's holding Jerusalem when the Crusaders get there, it'll just fall. However, the hope here is the Fatimid diplomacy card. The Christian player has the chance to take this instead of one of his cards on turn 2. And if he doesn't do this, the Muslim player has the same choice. If neither player does it, then the event will take place no matter what, which has a few different possibilities, but there's a good chance of a Fatimid invasion of Jerusalem, which I think was the historical situation, in which case any Seljuk castles just fall over and become full-strength Fatimid castles. Acre and Jerusalem become Fatimid controlled. There's some troops added to them. The Seljuks in those two provinces are removed from the game. The Fatimids maintain their diplomatic orientation, which means if you attack the Seljuks, and you kind of have to take Jerusalem, you involve them into the war, which becomes a different thing. Shiite uprising in Syria is another option. Unbesieged Damascus or Aleppo units outside their home province are placed in any friendly space in that province. No Damascus or Aleppo forces may leave their home province for the rest of the game. Well, that's a weakening for the Seljuk player. So maybe he doesn't want this to take place. Unfortunately, this card has to take place from what I see, because if you're holding it in your hand, it's a mandatory event card. And if you don't play it, it's triggered automatically as long as there are no Christian forces in Jerusalem or Transjordan. The bonus to it is it's a 3-point card, and that's a pretty good value. And it also has a special bonus for the Muslim player in this, which is that he's allowed to move any leader, but I don't think anyone's less than a 3. And the final one's a Fatimid expeditionary force. Al-Afdal, some forces, move from Cairo to Al-Arish. I'm not going to be able to find that quickly. I don't know where that's going to be. These forces are under Christian control and do not demobilize or gain replacements. The remaining Fatimid forces remain neutral and may not be entered by Christian forces. The Christian player gains victory points for strongholds taken by the Fatimids only if there's at least a Christian leader present at the time of the capture. So you don't want to use them just against the Seljuks. Anyway, what this here's Al-Arish. What this does is it kind of simulates the multiplayer aspect of the old Berg Crusades game in Isuman, where Christian soldiers also had this multiplayer aspect. The Fatimids are really the wild card in this. They were the ones who attacked the Seljuks. And the Muslims they would love to see the Fatimids just take Jerusalem. That saves them the problem of defending it. The other results are not good, though. Aleppo and Damascus, they don't want to see those fall, get paralyzed particularly. And that would really free up the Christian ability to just march down the coast without having to take those important cities until later. And then the other one is clearly not to their advantage, having Fatimid troops aiding the Christians against them. Wow, they don't want to see that. They want the historical result, which was perhaps in a way the worst result for the Seljuks. Now, in the old Crusades game, all this territory was valuable, so you kind of didn't want the Seljuks taking that territory, because those were points that you could have fallen back on and given things to the Crusaders. Very different dynamic to the game. Alright. Victory conditions: the Christian has to get 13 or more victory points in Jerusalem. For the Muslim to win, he has to drop the Christians below 10 victory points. The Christian player starts with 2. I don't know what those are for. I guess stuff over on Cyprus. Deal out some cards and get this started. Okay, so I've dealt out the cards, and a number of things in the first turn are not done, replacement and mustering. So I dealt out the cards. Now it's time to determine initiative. Now here we compare the highest. We take the highest ranking leader, and in the case of the Muslims, that's going to be Karboga, because he has the highest command rating. In the case of the Catholics, that looks like it's going to be Toulouse. And whoever has the lowest strategy or initiative rating or whatever is going to have the initiative. So in this case, Toulouse has a 2, Carboga has a 3, so the Crusaders have the initiative. That means they get to play the first card, I guess. That's all that it looks like it is. And, well, we'll take a look at some of the cards. You can see how they kind of mix together. Now, the diplomacy factor is indeed in the left-hand corner, not the right-hand corner as first described. But when you spread out your hand, you see a bunch of colors, and I'm going to try to see if there's any sense behind those. There should be. They should be giving me some additional clues beyond just... It could just be the number of strength, and they have a diplomacy, so... It doesn't look like it's that. So I'm going to try to figure out what kind of values those colors have to the game, because it's not described. Alright, onward. So it is. So these colored ones are scenario cards, and I should have pulled them out already from the deck. I've screwed up by doing this, and I'm going to basically go through the entire sorted deck of cards, pull out all the scenario cards that don't belong to this scenario, and reshuffle. Didn't strike me very easily, but yeah, the different colors are the way to determine those. The red ones are going to be in every deck, but the rest are by scenario to give the specific flavor, because we're talking about a significant amount of difference in time and some special events, so they should be able to tune the games better to the historical reality. Well, before I deal out the cards, you can kind of see, I wanted to show this just because it really gives a graphic image of how many scenarios there are. I've got A dealt in here, but B going all the way out to H. Now, do they all have their own decks? Yeah, C does too. Okay. Yeah, they each have their own, just a few cards in some cases, and some like H, which is, you know, so late in the, I think that's the Fourth Crusade, maybe. Well, maybe not, because it's got this diversion thing, which makes me think of the Fourth Crusade. But I don't think that's actually covered in this scenario. I think it's just assumed that that goes after Constantinople. But wow, you know, I guess it's not that much bigger than the timed events that go into, say, Here I Stand or something. But you know, you're really definitely trying to control the deck more with some of these. In fact, in some ways, you're kind of wondering, gee, does it make sense that, you know, 95% of the deck is going to be the same from game to game? And I don't know about that, but it's kind of neat to see just how many different scenarios they had to support. So if they wanted to go for, you know, a larger chunk of the deck, they'd have to really throw a lot more cards into their production overall. All right. So one quick thing I start to notice about these cards is they all have a lot of text on them. They really have to read. Maybe not a humongous amount, but it's written in a way that I'm finding, maybe because of the texture of the card, the graphics, whatever, difficult to absorb. And in particular, there's a lot of reactive stuff in the game. For example, plan any activated army containing Orthodox units or starts in an Orthodox-controlled territory. That unit loses its activation. You have to be aware of all these reactive moves you can make. Now, it's no worse than a game of, say, Magic the Gathering for that, where you have to be aware of your entire hand of cards and what you have out. But there's more variety. You have a deck full of completely different cards here, and you're also approaching them for the first time. You didn't design the deck, etc. So you're not really expecting what you can play. I design my Magic decks with very few cards that require me to pay a lot of attention to what the card actually does, and most don't. Here, everything is going to be, you know, you really do have to absorb all your cards before you can even start to think of doing what you're going to do. And this is something I find with a lot of these CDGs, is that, well, for one thing, even when playing opposed, I have to spend a lot of time trying to figure out what the hell I'm going to do. I don't have that issue as much in a game where I don't have a handful of cards that all do special effects. I have some basic goals that I set in mind that aren't going to be changed by those. On another side, though, playing solitaire, it means that my walking away from the table means I have to expend this effort every time I want to do a card play. So basically, I'll usually play a CDG by playing one card and then playing one from the other side maybe, and then going away and taking a little break from the game to forget what's going on a little bit so that I don't know what the opponent's reactions are. Well, here, with all the reactive cards, that's going to hurt, and it's tough to maintain segmentation and maintain awareness at the same time. Basically, you could do one or the other. And it's one of the problems that I've had with games with a lot of reactive cards. Anyway, this one definitely has a lot, and I have to worry about it. I've decided what the Crusaders are going to start off with. They start with a big force here, and I'd kind of like to move it forward and push it into basically as far as I can get, which may be to here after going through Heraclea. But there's a problem. There's bad terrain going through there. I want to keep my army together, largely not because I'm worried that it's going to get defeated by something like this, which is a fairly weak force, but because I don't want to expend lots of cards moving them. I have this coordinated advance that will allow me to move two forces together. But this one's going to allow me to move my entire force forward without taking attrition rolls, and that's the action I want to take, even though it's a higher value card than maybe I need. It also has the advantage, it's siege event, and almost all cards seem to have a siege or perhaps a battle event. I don't know, I haven't seen any of those. A siege event is a defender's one, and I'm probably not going to need a defender's card, at least on this first one. So I'm going to play this, and I'm going to take good old Toulouse. And he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 leaders he can command. The Byzantines, I think, are stuck with only commanding 2 troops. That's all he can take. Let's see what we can get with other people. Tancred takes 2. 4 here. Under Bouillon, I hope I can command the whole army, because if not, we get a problem. Okay, well, I got a couple extra units. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that I can command with Toulouse. Now, I'm going to want, because my entire army is together, I'm going to want to use one of these markers. Well, what's kind of interesting with this, yeah. Alright, and I'll leave Toulouse on top of that, and everybody else, I don't know where to put them. I'll put them all over here, which is kind of confusing because that's where my dead pile and other stuff is, and there's no real distinguishable. Now I have a movement allowance of 4 with this army. Oh yeah, 4 with the army. Leaders don't, Christian leaders have a movement allowance of 4 as well. And I've just activated, and now, luckily, because I did my homework and looked at the Muslim cards at the same time, I want to play Aggrieved Subordinate. Play after an enemy's army is activated before movement. One subordinate of your choice and units up to his command rating may not move this activation. If no subordinate is present, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that has just prevented, and I get to choose someone. I'm going to choose Bouillon because he's the strongest. And as to the forces that he can command, those are pretty much predetermined. So he's going to be stuck here in Constantinople. So I failed to keep the forces split. And now 1, 2, I'm into Heracleum. I don't want to fight this battle if I can help it. So let's grab a couple of dice. I never liked the multi-man dice. I don't know why. They remind me of Victory Games dice, I think, which were always kind of misshapen and had problems with them. There doesn't seem to be a problem with the multi-man ones. It's just they remind me of the ones that I had problems with. So I have my SPI, but I'll use these. What the hell? Okay, so I want to try to avoid combat here. And we flip through this very glaring shiny book. God, I hate gloss on my rule books. And see what we need to do here. It's not a cav, no stronghold, not besieging, we're not attempting shadow. So now basically we have to roll less than our battle rating. Our battle rating is a big old 3. That's, oh no, that's not right. Our battle rating's a 1. The 1s in this game are kind of annoying. So I've got to roll a 1 to get out of there. I get a penalty in combat if I try this. But, you know, I don't think I can succeed and do damage or anything otherwise. So I'm going to try to get out anyway. I do not. So now we go to the battle. And let's figure this out. Well, I got to grab all these guys and count them. That's going to take some effort. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 threes is 30 strength points. 32, 35, 36, 39, 40, 41. So it looks to me like I've got 42 strength points. Wow, there's a lot of room here on these. I've got to look through all my cards again and see if I have any battle cards. Of course, with 2 players, both players would be doing this, so it would only take half the time. I don't think I do. I don't think there are many cards that affect battle, but I want to make sure. But anyway, where were we? 30-something? I don't remember. I can't remember a thing. And no, I'm not hungover. That's just my brain. And then I have to count the others. So I'll come back in a moment. We're not going to get very far on this video. Okay, so I did the counting again, 42 to 5 or something like that. There was 1 card that's valuable in combat. It's Blueprint. It's not down here. This is only for the siege thing. I could play before die rolls in a battle in which I have 2 or more Catholic units. Enemy losses are increased by 2 steps. I think that's a waste of a 3-point card. And you do get another draw afterwards. Do I get one on this? No. Okay. You do get a draw, as in many games battle cards seem to give you a drawback when you play them. But a 3-point card's pretty good. Granted, I might get something cooler, but I'd rather do this. So, we get our roll. Failed to avoid battle, the Muslims have a -1. The leader's battle ratings, Crusaders have a +2. And that's it. So the Muslims do no damage whatsoever. The Crusaders do 8, which is going to be 23 steps. That's going to wipe these suckers out. I wonder what... Yeah, Deadpool. I wonder what happens to the leader. There's a leader loss table. And DR is capitalized. I think that means 2 dice. It also says it here. Battle rating of the leader is a big old 1. Was this a major victory? Yes, it was a major victory. Because more than 2 times losses or whatever. So that's a -2. So I'm at -1 net. Let me roll the dice, see what happens. -1 net puts 7. He's a prisoner. Again, I don't have a place to put him in a prisoner pool. Unlike, say, Warriors of God. So, well, I'll put him over here. That's serving a lot of functions, and they're going to start getting confused if I'm not careful. Now, I've moved 1. I could move down here and open up a siege to this city, or castle. I'm not sure how much value there is to doing that. So instead I'm going to go 2, 3, 4. Now, do I want to call for a surrender for this? Because I can just pretty much bypass this without a problem. Tarsus is a port. Let's see. They do not... here's the resistance factor. Leader in stronghold, 1 to 2 steps inside city now. 3 or more inside a city, assassin, Templar, or hospital. Castle with low garrison. Okay, so it's going to be a base of 3 resistance, which is written on the counter. A port, yeah, port's +1, so that's a 4 resistance. So I think I have to roll higher than a 4 to call for surrender. I want to do that though, because if I can end this without starting a siege, that'll help. And I do not roll higher than a 4, so now I'm going to establish a siege of the city. And what did we say? We say it's a 4, so it has that, and we kind of mark that somehow. So that was, as far as I can tell, the Crusader action. Can I do an assault right off? If I can, I might. Even with 4 column shifts against, my big 42 strength, 1, 2, 3, 4, is fairly high against whatever they're going to have. I've got a chance of knocking that down. So I'm going to look that up, and I'll be back in a minute. Now I need to do an actual siege action. And one thing I was able to check for, if this wasn't a port, I'd be able to blockade it, which might have some effects, but I can't do that right now. So instead, all I'm stuck with is having to siege Tarsus. How terrible is that? I don't think it's that bad at all. This seems to be the best route across. We'll see what we do with Bouillon. That's a big force that stayed behind. But we've got to press on and move as quickly as possible. And sieging a city or a castle may not be the easiest thing. We'll see. Alright, this one's going up.